After what happened to you when you said LLVM could be faster in a programming form, you respect all these guys so much more. What happened? Did people just like flame on you for not respecting LLVM or what? Or like give you all the excuses for why it's slow? Obviously, it has to be slow. It does optimization. Obviously, it has to be slow. It targets so many platforms. Obviously, it has to be slow because your butt, you were murdered by a horde of people after saying LLVM was slow. Like, look, they admitted, like, didn't they just have an entire update where half the point was to make it go a little bit faster again because they just kept getting slower? Like, that was in the past few months. So like there's no debate that it's slow. They flamed on me and called me and Casey bums. Well, that's fine. I will not hire any of those people. The thing you have to realize about that, all internet communities like that are toxic, all right? Because they consist of people, it's like a sports team, all right? They consist of people who identify with LLVM. And anything you say that is critical of LLVM in any way is saying shit about their sports team, all right? Now, never mind that that's extremely anti-engineering of a mindset and that it guarantees that those people will be bad engineers. That's just how internet communities are. And it's why it's so difficult to find quality, in the internet. It's like people, human beings generally speaking, and this isn't even just about technical things, it's about everything. Human beings pretend to be interested in something or doing something seriously when really they're not doing that thing for that thing's sake. They're doing that thing kind of largely for their own ego's sake and then only incidentally for that other thing, right? That's just how human beings exist. It's how they deal with being in the world. All right? And so when you have a big forum full of people who have banded together because they like LLVM or like Vegeta in Dragon Ball or whatever, that's what's going on. Is it's people who are trying to convince themselves they exist and trying to scrabble for the best existence that they can get. It's not about doing the best engineering, because if it were, or about having the best super cyan powers, or however you say that, right? Because if it were, people wouldn't be annoyed if you said LLVM was slow. They'd say, yes, it takes this many seconds to compile this many lines. Yes, obviously it would be better if that number was lower. Like, how debatable is that? If it takes a non-negligible amount of time to compile a large program, obviously it is better if that time is lower, all other things being equal. That's an undisputable statement, right? But people will dispute it because you're threatening to make them look into the abyss in some small way. So like you're actually playing with something a little bit dangerous there. This is the very important thing to learn. Okay, so first, look at how that community is reacting. It is nothing specific to LLVM, right? Like programming language communities get like that. Uh, every all sorts of places get like that. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to do something in like the code of conduct to be like, don't act that way. I don't know how we're gonna phrase it, but so internalize that. Like, look at what that looks like, because now that you see it very clearly, you can make sure that you don't do that, right? And if you're ever in a place and you look around and everybody in the community is acting like that, maybe it's time to make a fresher, smaller community that doesn't have all those people in it, right? A higher quality tranche inside that community. That's a good sign of what not to do, which is useful, but then just realize that helps clarify what to do, right? What do we want to do? Just be a really good engineer, right? When part of being an engineer is looking for the best design, technical design, right? And as you know, that means optimizing these various parameters, like, for example, performance. Performance is not the only thing that's important, right? It is sometimes worth trading off performance for other things. But, you need to make sure that that's a very justified trade-off if you're being a good engineer. So you can just use this as a clarifying moment. Just look at that, see what you see, and remember it. And use it to guide yourself in the future. And all of that is regardless of whether I'm correct or incorrect about LLVM being slow, for example, right? Like, regardless of whether you believe me, there are reasonable ways to respond to an engineering criticism, and there are unreasonable ways. And on the internet, what you almost always see is unreasonable ways of responding. Because it would take effort. You would have to have a tremendous amount of understanding even to respond correctly to somebody saying like something like what you were saying. And most people don't have that. Most people hanging out in these communities don't have that. Only like really core people who are super working on it have that. So, yeah.